Hello again, folks. I'm going to give a bit of an ad hoc update as to what's going on, just to keep everybody in the loop. I hope you all understand that from time to time I'm being bombarded with phone calls and requests and letters and everything, and please understand, I'm not being rude to anyone. If you don't hear from me, please understand it's literally just a matter of time management, and we're doing the best we can. As a matter of fact, this is basically for everybody to understand the methodology, if you like, that we're using now. Is we understand how crucial it is for everybody on the ground, all the Paddies and Marys out there, so to speak, to understand in a very personal way what is actually going on here. And it's all in context of the bigger picture and the tyrannies that are beginning to be visited on us and so on. It all links together, but you do have to understand what's going on. So again, apologies to those of you who are coming fresh into this story. Please check out the previous videos and messages, and if you haven't already done so, get yourself a copy of the Criminality in the Irish Courts book. I'll pop it up here on the side. Criminality in the Irish Courts and the Absence of the Rule of Law. It not only names 100, the horrible 100 we're calling them, agents of the state, including lawyers, guards, judges, solicitors, politicians, of course, civil servants that are all engaged in outright, rampant criminal conduct on a daily basis. And it doesn't matter how many of us report them, complain about them, go to the oversight bodies, go to the houses of the Oireachtas. There's a whole cabal up there that are protecting each other, and something obviously has to be done about it. Because at the moment, and I say this again with respect to whatever decent judges, solicitors, barristers, etc., and guards that are out there, civil servants, but from our perspective, the system is an absolute shambolic criminal disgrace, and we simply have to do something about it. So anyway, the story in the Criminality in the Irish Courts book at page 79, I believe, there's a 12-section extract taken from a German political magazine that covered our story because we couldn't get anyone in Ireland to cover it. And it basically lays the foundation of how the Integrity Ireland project came about, how it is that I am personally embroiled in several different cases up in the courts, and all of the criminal shenanigans that these so-and-sos are pulling in order to stop themselves being exposed for the criminal, diabolical, moral miscreants that they are. So, little update, guys. You're all aware I had 2 judicial reviews up in the High Court. First one lodged in 2017, the second in 2018. The first one was to do with me having been unlawfully jailed. Okay? Big, long story. But we had all the proofs of a conspiracy, and there's no other word for it, you know. I know people shout out, oh, he's alleging conspiracies. Yes, I am. Absolutely. I'm not just alleging it, I'm proving it. We've got signatures of High Court judges on documents that they couldn't possibly have been able to predict what was about to happen unless they were in, and they knew that they were setting me up and they were going to have me jailed. Yeah. So anyway, I took out a judicial review. So I'm asking the High Court to look into the fact that I had been jailed unlawfully. And I remember telling my 2 daughters when they came to visit me in jail, don't worry about it, because this is your education paid for. I literally thought that it was such an open and shut, simple case of not only a miscarriage of justice, but perverting the course of justice, interfering with the administration of justice, and a criminal conspiracy by agents of the DPP, various judges, lawyers and guards and civil servants, especially court service staff, particular court staff members, to jail someone because I was insisting on them abiding by the law. It was really that simple. So anyway, a second judicial review was lodged when between 8 and 14 of the first crowd that put me into jail got their heads together again and lodged another fraudulent accusation against me. And the idea was to intimidate me into dropping the first judicial review. Anyway, those of you that are keeping up with the story will realize that a few weeks ago, well actually it was in December, first of all, December at the end of last year, 3 of the players, one is the DPP Claire Loftus, Another one is a Judge Fiona Lydon, and another one is an Inspector Gerard McEntee. Okay, now those three people basically tried up to 8 times. Certainly, whether Judge Lydon was involved in the earlier attempts or not, I don't know. But certainly, the other two were. So at least 8 times they tried to move ahead with the district court case against me, even though there was a High Court order staying those proceedings. Now, this, in black and white, is called contempt of the High Court. And if any of the rest of us did it, we would be marched straight into jail. It's as simple as that, okay? So when they tried to force me to go up to Belmullet Court in March by issuing 2 fraudulent orders, again, another contempt, this time of the district court as well as of the High Court, I beat them to the punch, and I got into the High Court and I lodged applications to have Lydon, Loftus and McEntee jailed for contempt of court. Now, those applications have not yet been dealt with. When I say dealt with, we've been through one process. Judge Meenan lied to me during that process, and a barrister, to try and kick the can down the road. Then, as you will know, Justice Michael McGrath called a hearing in the matter, even though he's got criminal charges pending against him at the CCJ. He shouldn't be anywhere near this case anymore. But the rules don't matter, guys, do they? So he then tried to pull a fast one, and we caught him short on that when we turned up with a crowd and a protection detail, and we went in. And if you haven't seen that yet, guys, please go and look for that video, because it shows you exactly what happened inside and outside that court that day. And you can see just by the recording that the claims after the fact that McGrath actually held some sort of a hearing and things were discussed and things were decided, it's an absolute dirty, fat, miserable black lie. Yes, Michael McGrath, I'm calling you to your face a filthy liar. You and the rest of them, okay? And if you think I'm defaming you, please sue me. If you think I'm scandalizing the courts, please call me in for it, because you know what's going to happen? We're just going to prove to anybody who's willing to listen that it's you so-and-sos that are scandalizing the courts. It's you guys that are the liars and the moral deviants. It's you guys that are the conspirators. It's you guys that are the thieves and the fraudsters. And, I don't even know where to go with this. But to a certain sense, it disgusts me having to actually deal with people like this. But as we've said many, many times, guys, we're moving towards tactics now. And we need everybody to understand what we're doing. You need to come on board, guys, and understand that the way to deal with these people is only and absolutely according to the law. As soon as they deviate from the law, they are committing a criminal offence. It's really that simple. If they lie to you, if they forge documents, if they try to trick you into missing your court case, yeah, if they overcharge you, if they assault you, etc., etc., okay? If they step outside of the bounds of their jobs, and if they break the law, remember Article 40.1, all citizens are equal under the law. Well, if they are, then basically we could say to all the Irish public now, well, look, Loftus and Lydon didn't bother turning up in the High Court when they were summoned to come. Not just once, twice, 3 times. They didn't bother sending any legal representation. Why? Oh, sure, don't you know? They're all above the law. No, they're not. Article 40.1 says otherwise. So either our constitution is a lie, or there's a criminal cabal operating outside of the law. And we, if we engage with them, are facilitating those crimes. So we've got to be brave enough to stop it. Anyway, guys, didn't mean to ramble on like that. Here we go. The latest now was that last Thursday, a couple of the Integrity Ireland lads came together with me, and we went up to the central office to serve documents on the High Court. Now, as everybody knows, you're supposed to have an appointment. We were trying to get an appointment. We were being messed around. We weren't getting our emails answered, etc., etc. So we just decided to call their bluff, and we turned up, little group of us. And to my genuine surprise, one of the registrars, who I recognised, was kind enough to say, well, I'll see if we can squeeze you in. So anyway, the long and the short of it is we got in there, we got our documents stamped. There was a little bit of a brouhaha in the central office with Mr. Shortall, Colin Shortall. Shout out to you, sir. He will be facing criminal charges too for sitting on documents that we needed up in the High Court. And then this fool, and I'm calling you to your face, Mr. Shorthall, because you admitted, and I think you guessed, didn't you? Yes, it's all recorded. We've got you admitting on tape that you were the one who held up those documents unlawfully, thus preventing me making an application in the High Court. Naughty, naughty, Colin. You should have thought twice, okay? So Colin Shorthall will be getting criminal charges lodged against him at the CCJ whenever they will ever get dealt with. But the fact of the matter is, we're naming and shaming these people, yeah? And at the same time, I want to acknowledge the young man who dealt with me. I won't name him here for the sake of not either embarrassing him. But you know who you are, sir. You were courteous to me. Thank you for that. You were helpful. Thank you for that. Okay? So we got our papers stamped and we left copies with the central office. So now there's 2 affidavits in on that judicial review that they're trying to shut down. Remember, there was a judgment read out on May the 18th. Okay, the Irish Times were invited to it. I wasn't even told about it. And it's my case. I wasn't even told about it, guys. And I hope the Irish Times people are looking in, because they've hired a company of solicitors called Hayes Solicitors, because I wrote to the Irish Times and asked them simply for the right to reply. In other words, to correct the erroneous article that they put out, which made it look like I had lost my case. So I tried to explain to them, and they went, what was said in that article was an exact account of what was read out in open court that day. Oh, really? So you were there, were you? Yeah? Miss Carolyn, the reporter for the Irish Times, were you there? Really? Did it not cross your mind to ask, where's the applicant here? Where's Dr. Manning? Should I maybe have a look at the case file and make sure that what I'm hearing from Judge Michael McGrath is actually true? Because hardly any of it was. No? Well, my suggestion to the Irish Times, and if you think about it for a minute, editors and so on, I'll just flash their names up here, the owner and the editor of the Irish Times. If you think about it for a minute, guys, what you should be doing is partnering with me and suing Michael McGrath up in the High Court for bringing your newspaper into disrepute by giving you information and a document which was a blatant concoction and a contrivance. Think about it. Anyway, in the meantime, guys, the solicitors, Hayes Solicitors, wrote, well, I told them that I was going to take action if they didn't give me a chance to reply. And I get a response from Hayes Solicitors. Now, Hayes Solicitors sent me a letter, and first of all, they sent it by email. I said, would you please send me a hard copy, something that we can put on the file. Properly signed. Now, I keep insisting on this. Why? Because one of the oldest tricks in the book is that they signed that, for instance, Arthur Cox solicitors. They're still signing their letters Arthur Cox. It's handwritten Arthur Cox. But Arthur Cox has been dead for 40 years, So who are you going to sue if you catch them red-handed? Oh, well, we don't know who it was. It was someone in the office, So I always insist on an individual signing off, so that we know who we're dealing with. It's very simple. And then if they do lie to you, you know who to complain about. So here they go. They sent it to me. Signed. Properly signed. Hayes. Who's Hayes? Doesn't exist, right, obviously. And on top of that, and I'm now going to put up 3 sections of law here, guys, because apparently there's a very good chance that the solicitors that you are dealing with right now in your case could be in breach of certain regulations. Now, I'm just going to run them up here on the screen for a second. Pause the screen if you need to, guys, and write them down, all right, and then go and check them out. But I haven't got my head fully around it just yet, but apparently there are certain circumstances where solicitors, if they're in a limited partnership or something of that nature, they cannot represent themselves in the courts as solicitors. There's a lacuna or a conflict of laws there. It's worth looking at, because it could be that many people posing as solicitors are doing so unlawfully in the courts. Okay, have a look at it. And of course, I'm very sorry to those of you in the legal profession who are doing your jobs honestly, but maybe this will get you better business if we clear out some of the shady ones. Okay. Now, I won't name the solicitors at Hayes who are communicating with me, on the outside chance that, again, they might be just doing their jobs, and once they realize that they're dealing with somebody who is going to insist on honesty and truthfulness and such like, that they will behave that way. However, if they cross the line, you guys will be the first to know. If they do that, of course, we'll be writing back to the Irish Times and saying, please get yourself another set of solicitors, because we won't deal with liars or criminal deviants. It's simple as that. Just keep holding that line, guys, and just watch how the seas part. Okay? So anyway, we served the documents. I was telling you, we went up to the Supreme Court and had an interesting exchange there. Oh, we're under renovation. Oh, you kept, well, sure, we're here now. I said, we'll just leave the documents here with you. Oh, have you sought liberty for permission to apply to the Supreme Court? I said, we're not asking anymore. We're not asking you for liberty or for permission anymore. That's a nonsense. Why are we going to hand you more opportunities to obstruct and deceive us? No. I'm here serving these documents on you. They are there. You can do what you like with them after I walk out, but they have been served on you, and we have witnesses to the fact. So we've now lodged those affidavits in the Supreme Court. We then went to the Court of Appeal office. We lodged the affidavits there, okay? And this is where the story gets a bit interesting. We also served them on the DPP, but this is where it gets a bit interesting, because 3 or 4 days later, and again, guys, please get your heads around this and understand who it is you're dealing with when you're dealing with this crowd up there, okay? At least the criminal elements up there, 3 or 4 days later, an envelope arrives in the post addressed to me. My 2 affidavits that I left in the Court of Appeal office have been returned to me. No explanation. There's a cover slip from the court service that says, your affidavits. That's it. I haven't got it here with me, guys, but anyway, just trust me on that. Your affidavits. No signature, no mention of who did this, no reason why they've sent them back to me, right? We told the girl at the counter when we handed them in, we said, there's an appeal. This is to do with an appeal. And we'll get back to you on it, but we're physically here today, so we just thought we'd leave them here. Just hold on to them. All they had to do was hold on to them, So, anyway, with that, I wrote to the Court of Appeal, no response. So eventually, a colleague of mine referred me to a man whom he suggested was reliable and helpful and who worked up at the Court of Appeal office. So I contacted this man, and again, out of respect for the fact that eventually he did come back to us and appears to have been helpful, we acknowledge that, okay? But it took 4 days. So we didn't even hear from him until Thursday this week. Now, bear in mind, all the shenanigans that McGrath's been up to the last couple of weeks, he's put artificial time limits on it. So by their rules, if I don't do X, Y, and Z within a certain amount of time, then it's open the gates to Belmullet and throw Manning back in jail or something of that nature. That's what I suspect. But of course, everything they're doing is criminal. And even the European Court said it is an absurdity for the authorities to be breaking the law in order to be enforcing the law. Okay? So, which it obviously is. And we're the fools if we go along with it. The minute somebody visits a crime, you say, no, stop, I'm not engaging with this. I now know that criminal activity is happening, even if it's happening to you, or being visited on you by someone else, you disengage. I'm not dealing with this on those grounds. Watch what they do. They can't do anything, guys. It's really quite amazing. But anyway, we're working on documents and stuff that are going to empower people to be able to do this, on their own directly as individuals. And we're getting some successes and reports back from people in the courts who are holding their ground, and they're standing up to, particularly to dodgy judges or guards who are putting in fraudulent statements or colluding with each other to frame people, solicitors who are playing the game, just playing their role and pretending to represent someone when they're not, and people are now starting to stand up to them. And this is really important that this happens, guys. Also, just quickly as well, I'll point out the fact that these little fellas are starting to fly as well. This is the how to prosecute someone in your own name for free. Okay, no fees, no nothing, straight in, one sheet of paper in front of the judge. He has to issue a summons against the person who's doing it. And you can get these for about a tenner online, guys. Not a hard read, nice big print, and explains to you how the process works. And it is a very simple process, okay? So it's good to see that because it means people are starting to wake up. Anyway, back to the story. We've now got the documents sent back to me in the post. I call up and I say, I called up, couldn't get answers, sending emails, nobody responding. So I contact this man that I'm referred to that works up there. And it took him 4 days. I was just about to give up, to be honest. And then he gets back to me. So the email I'd sent into the Court of Appeal was simply this. I said, look, I'm not wasting stamps sending these documents back to you. All right, I've sent them to you as PDFs, so they've been electronically served, which you can do now. All right, so they've been sent to you electronically. As far as I'm concerned, you've got them. Okay, and then this helpful man writes back and says, yeah, the reason your affidavits were refused was because they don't align with an appeal record number. Now, the solicitors out there and the people who have been in the courts will know what this is all about. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. I got back in touch with them. I said, I'm sorry, you said they were refused. I wasn't told that. How do you know they were refused? Who sent them back? Oh, I don't know. I wasn't there on that day, and I don't know who it was. And of course, it raises the question, well, how do you know they were refused then, and so on, and who did you get the inference? Anyway, it doesn't really matter at this point. The fact is, he says, they're not part of an appeal. And then I had a little bit of a brainwave, I suppose, because back in 2019, I had lodged an appeal at the Court of Appeal. And it was an appeal against Justice Michael McGrath fraudulently issuing a judgment in the first judicial review and changing the title on it. Now, again, if you're a solicitor, or you're a barrister, or you're a judge, and you're watching this, or even a court service staff, please listen carefully, because this is, your reputations are all being shattered. They are being traipsed upon. They're being they're making a nonsense of the King's Inn, of the Law Society, of the Justice Department, of all the years of study that you guys have put in to getting your qualifications so that you can command, a decent living and high wages and everything and accolades and yes sir, no sirs. They're making an absolute nonsense of it, okay? I lodged an appeal. I went in, I lodged the appeal under the correct title number. This was in October 2019. And it was appealing against the fact that McGrath had changed the title on proceedings unlawfully. And so, now, the Court of Appeal issued me a number. And for the record, it is 2019/146. Okay? 2019-146. That's the number of the appeal that I started at the end of 2019. Now, the problem was, I was given a date to go in front of Justice Birmingham and his colleagues, and arrived up at the Court of Appeal only to find that they had then changed the paperwork to read a different title. So now please get your heads around this, guys, okay? So now I'm going into an appeal which is holding a different title to the case that I'm appealing about, right? This just can't sort of happen. And very interestingly, I'd also lodged an appeal to the Supreme Court. And guess what they did? They said to me, we can't give you an appeal because the title on your proceedings doesn't match the title on what? The fraudulent order that Michael McGrath had produced, which is what I was appealing against. So the Supreme Court uses as an excuse not to give me an appeal at all, which I appealed against that refusal, etc. And then O'Donnell came in and so on and so forth. While the Court of Appeal grants me the appeal, and after they granted, they changed the title. So I walk in front of Birmingham, and unfortunately for Mr. Birmingham, some anonymous source sent us a recording of the proceedings afterwards. Thank you very much to that anonymous source. We're beginning to suspect it must be one of the judges, or somebody working, Anyway, whoever it is, thanks very much, guys, because they are very helpful. They save all that wasted time chasing after DAR records that keep getting interfered with, transcripts that don't accurately reflect what was said, and so on and so forth. So it's handy. We keep these records. We write out what we hear that was literally said on the day, and we know that that's the accurate record. So anything that doesn't match it, well, here we go again. Anyway, to cut a long story short, Mr. Birmingham comes out and says, right, what are you here today for? And I basically said to him in so many words, well, Judge, before we start, I'd written to him in advance, and I just asked him, did you get the notice that I served on the court? It was served on the Court Appeal Office. It was served on you personally. I sent you a copy to your private address up in the forecourts, under seal, etc., etc. And could I get that man to acknowledge that he had, then eventually he went, no. Now, frankly, I don't believe him. I just don't believe him, because it was served in advance, But anyway, he said no. And I said, really? I said, well, if you didn't get it, that means somebody has opened under seal mail. And mail that's under seal, if someone else opens it, that's another international criminal offence, actually. Okay, so anyway, we started off like that. He tried to bully me. He wasn't going to get very far with that. And I asked him, the one question I asked him was, Judge, before we go any further, this case is not listed under the correct title. It's a fraud that has been foisted on the High Court and the Court of Appeal, and to a certain extent on the Supreme Court, by Justice Michael McGrath. And if you or me or anyone continues under this title, we are facilitating that fraud. So I have to ask you, Judge, I'm standing in front of you, I'm just a lay litigant, and I ask you the simple question, are you ordering me to facilitate this fraud? In other words, do you want me to sort of engage in this so-called appeal process under this false title? Boom, bang, out he went. Again, prompting us to ask the court service cookhouse if there was something wrong with the food. So anyway, so what you need to understand, guys, is what I did then just now, this last couple of days. I fired back to the Court of Appeal, to the helpful guy, and I said, well, actually, there is an appeal listed since 2019, and it's never progressed. And that appeal contains both of the judicial reviews joined together. They were joined by court order, you see. Okay, so I can use either or to connect into that appeal. So I said those affidavits were part of that appeal. Here they are again, electronically. And then he came back. You just hardly wouldn't believe this, guys. Then he came back to me and he said, oh, actually, it wasn't us that was dealing with that. It was. I've got all the emails to prove it. They were the office that I was going through with that Court of Appeal. He says it was the Court of Criminal Appeal up in the CCJ that was dealing with that. Now, again, guys, those who are solicitors, lawyers, and barristers and whatever, judges, you know that what I was dealing with was a judicial review out of a district court case where I had been falsely imprisoned, for district and circuit court case. There is no facility to go to the criminal courts of appeal. There's no facility. So now here we go again. It's past the parcel. So now I have to contact the Court of Criminal Appeal up in the CCJ and say to them, what's going on? And they said, oh, Mr. Birmingham in November 2019, Mr. Birmingham issued directions that you were to do X, Y, and Z in order to move the appeal forwards. Now that is a black lie. And guess what? We've got the recordings to prove it again. Okay? So I've just finished by writing back now this evening. I sent quite a long email back to the person who sent me their emails, funny enough, at 4 minutes and 5 minutes past 5 today. With a bank holiday weekend coming up, no doubt they will have scarpered off for the weekend and I will not get any responses. But I've told them they've got 24 hours to get back to me. Otherwise, I'm assuming they're deliberately perverting the course of justice. All right? Now, I hope you're all bearing with this, guys. I know it's a bit of a ramble, but try and bear with this. So the circumstances right now are that I have told them I want these affidavits lodged under that appeal number. She wrote back and said, you've got to follow the directions of Justice Birmingham to do X, Y, and Z, and then we'll consider. And so I just said to her, thank you very much for acknowledging receipt of my affidavits. They've got them. The email proves she's talking about them. She's got them. And so I said, they're in, right? That's the first thing. I said, the second problem we've got, though, is that either Birmingham is lying or you guys are lying about these things being put on the case file. Then we have the issue that none of you have contacted me in nearly 18 months about these so-called directions, which were not said in court. So where did they come from? And then you have the added problem that because it's a fraudulent title that's issued out of the High Court on a fraudulent order, and now it's been turned into a fraudulent appeal, I can't have anything to do with it. Because if I did, that would make me complicit in all of your crimes. So we've got a bit of a conundrum. So with that, I've asked for an appointment next Tuesday up at the Court of Appeal. And those of you who want to stretch your legs and decide it might be a good idea to come along, this will be the CCJ. Now, we're not only going to be going in there looking to find out what's going on with this. Even if we don't get the appointment, we're still going up there just to prove a point, guys, that this is what they're at. You know, changing the goalposts. 1 minute, I'm dealing with the Court of Appeal in the four courts, And now, 18 months later, they say, oh, no, we never dealt with it. It's an open and shut lie. I've got all the email exchanges, you know? So, so clearly, guys, we're back to the update. And in the previous video, I said, mark my words, or one of the recent videos, I said, mark my words, this is the beginning of the end of corruption in the Irish courts. It is, if you guys really want it to be. So I'm asking everyone, please, to just watch. We'll try and keep you updated regularly as to what's going on. Please watch what's happening. But we're looking now to provide the Irish public with a legitimate, lawful, simple and easy to apply process, which will protect them from the criminal elements operating up in the courts. Okay. Thanks again for all your support. A final word to Kathleen. Kathleen, you were very kind to send this. Very, very kind. You won't realise, Kathleen, the meaning of this properly. All right. Maybe when we meet, I'll explain something to you. But it's in an upcoming book that we're doing. But it was a very thoughtful gesture and much appreciated. Thank you. So that's all for now then, guys. Please watch this space. In the event that anything untoward were to happen to me now in the coming days or weeks, and at the risk of sort of over-egging, maybe, my own importance, I suppose, you are my protection, guys. This is my protection, and the protection for all the other brave souls that are out there, putting themselves forwards, taking the risks, and challenging this utterly corrupt and even diabolical establishment. Okay? And one other thing, guys, one last thing, and I don't expect everybody to drop everything now and then, but if anybody has any doubts in their mind as to what is going on here, I'll just ask you to do one really simple thing. Just write or email your own TD, your own local representative.